You don't lose women when they stop caring. You lose them when they start caring, and you don't know how to handle it. That moment she reacts emotionally over something small, that wasn't the beginning of the end. It was the beginning of attachment. But most men don't recognize it. They feel pressure. They rush to explain themselves. They trade emotional stability for approval. And the dynamic collapses quietly. There's a specific emotional signal women give once they're invested, and it tells you exactly where you stand. If you miss it, you'll spend the rest of the relationship chasing balance instead of holding it. And you'll never understand how you went from having leverage to having none at all. This video isn't about dating tricks or emotional games. It's about awareness, the kind most men never develop until they've already lost control of the dynamic. If you've ever felt confused when a woman reacted emotionally and you didn't know whether to lean in or pull back, that's exactly what we're about to break down. You're going to learn how to read that moment correctly, why most men respond the wrong way, and how to stop handing away leverage without realizing it. If you've ever been in this situation, hit like. And if you want to understand female psychology at a level most men never reach, make sure you subscribe. And what comes next will change how you see these moments forever. Most men don't lose women in dramatic breakups or explosive arguments. They lose them in quiet moments they completely misunderstand. It usually starts small. She's suddenly irritated about a text you didn't send fast enough. She goes cold for no clear reason. She makes a sharp comment that feels unnecessary, almost childish. And immediately, your mind goes into damage control mode. What did I do wrong? How do I fix this? Did I mess things up? That reaction is automatic for most men. You're wired to restore calm, to smooth things over, to bring the situation back to neutral as fast as possible. So you reach out. You explain yourself. You apologize for things you didn't even do intentionally. You lower your position just to make the tension stop. But here's what no one tells you. Not every negative emotional reaction means she's losing interest. In fact, some reactions only appear once she already cares. A woman who feels nothing doesn't react. She doesn't get bothered. She doesn't get moody. She doesn't throw comments or pull back to see if you'll notice. She stays neutral, detached, quiet. That's the part most men miss. When her mood starts changing based on your behavior, even when you didn't do anything extreme, that's not indifference. That's emotional involvement. That's her internal balance being affected by you. And instead of recognizing that moment for what it is, most men panic. They treat it like a warning sign instead of a signal of investment. They rush in to fix something that didn't need fixing. They turn a position of quiet leverage into a position of emotional submission. This is the invisible moment where the dynamic flips, not against you, but toward you. And most men step right out of it without ever knowing they had the advantage. Indifference is quiet. Emotional reactions are loud. That distinction changes everything. Men are trained from a young age to believe that emotional tension means something is wrong, and that it's their job to fix it. If someone is upset, you smooth it over. If there's conflict, you resolve it. If emotions rise, you de-escalate. That mindset works in business. It works in friendships. It even works in crisis situations. But in male-female dynamics, that instinct often puts you in the weakest position possible. Because the moment a woman reacts emotionally, most men assume they've failed some invisible test. They rush to restore harmony, not realizing that harmony is not what creates attraction or respect. Emotional certainty does. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Women don't react strongly to men they don't care about. They don't get irritated by someone irrelevant. They don't feel disappointed by someone who doesn't matter. They don't feel emotional friction with a man who holds no weight in their inner world. Indifference doesn't create tension. Attachment does. But instead of seeing her reaction as proof that you've crossed a value threshold, most men interpret it as a warning sign. So they lean forward emotionally. They over-explain their intentions. They apologize to calm her feelings. And without realizing it, they reposition themselves beneath her emotional state. That's where the power shift happens. And it's self-inflicted. When you rush to fix her emotions, you silently communicate one thing. Her emotional stability now controls your behavior. And once that pattern is set, she doesn't need to ask for more control. It's already there. This is why so many men feel confused. They were confident. Things were flowing. Then she reacted, and suddenly they're chasing the version of her that existed before emotions entered the picture. But that version of her was neutral, not invested, not attached. The reaction wasn't a step backward, it was a step deeper. She wasn't reacting because you failed. She was reacting because you mattered. And the moment you understand that, you stop trying to earn back something you never lost, and start holding a position most men give away the second it appears. Here's where we need to slow down and get precise, because this is the psychological core most men never fully understand. A woman's emotional reaction is not random. It's not chaos. And it's definitely not a sign that you suddenly lost value overnight. When her emotions start shifting because of something small you did or didn't do, it means one thing. You've crossed an internal threshold. You now matter enough to affect her emotional state. That doesn't happen casually. Before that point, your actions are just information. She notices, but she doesn't feel. You text late? Neutral. You're busy? Neutral. You don't compliment her? Neutral. But once she's emotionally invested, those same actions stop being neutral. They start creating friction inside her. Her ego gets involved. Expectations form, often without her consciously deciding to create them. And that's the part most men misunderstand. She's not reacting because she's trying to control you. She's reacting because her internal balance was disrupted. Her emotions are responding before her logic can catch up. This is why you'll often hear women say things like, "I don't even know why that bothered me." That statement is honest. At this stage, she hasn't fully processed why she cares, only that she does. And that's what emotional investment looks like in real time. Here's the critical distinction most men never make. A reaction is not the same as control. A reaction is vulnerability. It means she's exposed enough for your behavior to matter. It means she's already placed you inside her emotional world, even if she hasn't admitted it to herself yet. But this is also the most fragile moment in the dynamic, because when a man senses her attachment, fear often takes over. Fear of losing her, fear of messing it up, fear of not being enough. So he tries to stabilize the situation by overcorrecting, and that's where the damage happens. Instead of letting the emotional imbalance settle naturally, he rushes in to reassure, explain, and soften everything, unintentionally training her that emotional reactions move him. That's why this moment matters so much. Handled correctly, her reaction deepens attraction and respect. Handled incorrectly, it teaches her that emotional pressure gives her leverage. The reaction itself isn't the danger. Your response to it is. And the men who lose control at this stage don't lose her because she reacted. They lose her because they didn't understand what the reaction actually meant. If you want real clarity in dating dynamics, you need to understand this contrast, because it's sharper than most men are willing to admit. A woman who doesn't care is easy to deal with. She doesn't ask questions. She doesn't react. She doesn't read into anything you do. You can disappear for a day. Nothing changes. You can be distant. Nothing shifts. Your presence or absence barely registers. That's indifference. And most men confuse that calm neutrality with things going well, because there's no friction, no tension, no emotion to manage. But that calm isn't peace. It's emptiness. Now compare that to a woman who is attached. Her mood changes based on your behavior. She notices your tone. She feels distance instead of just observing it. Sometimes she goes quiet, not because she doesn't care, but because she cares too much and doesn't want to expose it. Sometimes she says something sharp, not to hurt you, but to test whether you're still present, whether you notice, whether you respond. This is where men get it backwards. They fear emotional reactions and feel relieved by emotional silence. But emotional silence isn't stability. It's detachment. When a woman stops reacting altogether, that's when you should be concerned. That's when expectations are gone. That's when emotional investment has already started withdrawing. Emotion is friction, but friction only exists when there's contact. No contact, no reaction. So when she reacts, when her mood shifts, when her words carry emotional weight, it's not chaos. It's evidence of connection. It's proof that you're no longer optional in her emotional world. The mistake men make is trying to eliminate that friction instead of understanding it. They aim for no emotion instead of emotional control. They want things to feel easy instead of meaningful. And in doing so, they accidentally train women to emotionally disengage, because disengagement is calm, predictable, and safe. But it's also the end. You don't lose a woman when she's emotional. You lose her when she feels nothing. And once you truly understand that difference, you stop fearing her reactions and start recognizing them for what they really are. Let me ground this in something real, because this is where most men finally recognize themselves. A man I spoke to had been seeing a woman consistently. Nothing dramatic. No games. No pressure. Things felt smooth. Then one night, he didn't reply to her message. Not to create distance, not to make a point. He was genuinely busy. No explanation sent, no follow-up text. He handled his night and went to sleep. The next morning his phone was full. Not anger, not rage, just tension. A short message, slightly passive, emotionally loaded. Something along the lines of, "Guess I'm not that important anymore." Now pause here, because this is the exact moment most men ruin everything. They rush to explain. They apologize repeatedly. They overcorrect just to smooth things out. He didn't. He replied calmly, briefly, without urgency. "I was tied up last night. You okay?" No defensiveness, no emotional weight, no attempt to soothe her insecurity. And something interesting happened. Her tone shifted almost immediately. The edge disappeared. The distance softened. She started explaining herself instead. She told him she didn't know why she reacted that way. She admitted she felt insecure for a moment. She even apologized for projecting that emotion onto him. That's when the dynamic revealed itself. He didn't win because of what he said. He won because of how little he needed to say. His presence stayed steady while her emotions moved. And that stability created contrast. When a man doesn't collapse under emotional pressure, a woman is forced to regulate herself. She becomes aware of her own reaction. She reconnects with the reason she felt exposed in the first place. That moment wasn't about texting etiquette. It wasn't about timing or strategy. It was about power without force. He didn't try to control her emotions. He didn't try to escape them either. He simply stayed grounded and let her come back on her own. This is what most men miss. The strongest position isn't dominance. It's presence. And when a woman folds emotionally, it's not because she was pushed. It's because she felt safe enough to step forward. This is where most men lose control, not because she pulled away, but because they collapsed. The advantage was already there. The emotional investment had already formed. But instead of holding their position, they panic. And panic always looks the same. They apologize too fast and too much. They send long messages explaining themselves. They overtext, trying to reset the mood back to how it was. All of it comes from the same place. Fear. Fear of tension. Fear of losing her. Fear of not being enough anymore. So they try to calm her emotions at any cost. But here's what that behavior actually communicates, even if you never say it out loud. It tells her that her emotional state now controls you. The moment you rush to smooth things over, you hand her leverage. You teach her, subconsciously, that emotional pressure moves your behavior. That discomfort makes you bend. That insecurity gives her influence. And once that lesson is learned, the dynamic never feels the same again. This is why men often say, "She changed after that." No, the dynamic changed, because now she knows she doesn't need to meet you emotionally. You'll meet her instead. She doesn't need to regulate herself. You'll regulate yourself for her. And attraction doesn't survive there. Not because women are cruel, but because emotional safety doesn't come from control. It comes from stability. A man who over-apologizes isn't showing care. He's showing that he can be shaken. A man who over-explains isn't being honest. He's being reactive. And a man who over-texts isn't being attentive. He's chasing emotional permission. That's the quiet collapse most men never notice. They didn't lose her because she reacted. They lost her because they taught her that reacting gives her power. The moment you try to calm her emotions, you tell her she controls you. And once that message is sent, it's very hard to take it back. This is where control is either established or lost permanently. Not through dominance, not through silence, but through emotional steadiness. When she reacts, most men feel an internal pull to do something, to respond fast, to clarify, to soften the moment. But the strongest move isn't action, it's restraint. Holding your position doesn't mean ignoring her. It doesn't mean punishing her with silence. And it definitely doesn't mean acting cold or detached. It means you don't let her emotional wave knock you off center. You stay calm. You stay grounded. You remove urgency from your voice, your words, and your timing. When you speak slowly, clearly, without emotional charge. Not to fix her mood, but to acknowledge the moment without submitting to it. Something simple, neutral, observant. You don't usually get like this, something on your mind. No accusation, no apology, no defense. That kind of response does something powerful. It doesn't reward emotional pressure. And it doesn't reject her emotions either. It puts responsibility back where it belongs. When a woman doesn't get an immediate emotional payoff, reassurance, panic, submission, she's forced to regulate herself. She becomes aware of her own reaction. She reconnects with the fact that she is the one feeling exposed. And that's when balance returns. Not because you pushed it, but because you didn't chase it. This is why certainty is so important. Certainty tells her you're not shaken. Certainty tells her you're not afraid. Certainty tells her you don't need her emotional approval to stay grounded. And that creates safety, real safety. Not the kind that comes from control. The kind that comes from knowing you won't collapse under pressure. A man who stays emotionally steady becomes the anchor in the dynamic. And once that role is established, her reactions stop being weapons. They become signals. Signals you can read without reacting. Signals that tell you exactly where you stand. Certainty is the strongest emotional stabilizer. And when you hold it, the dynamic naturally settles in your favor. What most men don't realize is that having the advantage in a moment is easy. Keeping it is where identity shows. A single emotional reaction from her doesn't mean you suddenly won. It means you were briefly placed in a position where your response mattered more than your words. And that position can either turn into long-term control or disappear just as fast as it showed up. The difference comes down to one thing. Who needs who more to feel steady? A man loses long-term leverage the moment he starts needing clarity, reassurance, or emotional validation from her reactions. The moment he needs to be understood immediately. The moment he needs to prove that he's good enough so the tension will stop. That need erodes presence. Long-term control isn't about staying distant or withholding emotion. It's about not needing to convince. Not needing to chase emotional certainty. not needing to rush resolution just to feel safe again. When you're grounded in yourself, her emotions don't threaten you, they inform you. You don't overcorrect, you don't panic, you don't try to lock her in. And ironically, that's what keeps her there. A woman feels safest and most drawn to a man who doesn't fear losing her. Not because he's careless, but because his center isn't dependent on her moods. His calm doesn't fluctuate with her reactions. His identity doesn't shrink when tension appears. That's the shift from momentary power to mastery. You stop reacting to the dynamic and start shaping it simply by who you are in it. And once that happens, something subtle changes. She becomes more careful with your presence, more aware of your absence, more invested in maintaining connection, because she feels what it's like when you don't move emotionally. When you're no longer afraid to lose her, she becomes afraid to lose you. That's not manipulation. That's emotional independence, and it's the foundation of real control. What you need to understand and remember is this. A woman's emotional reaction is not a failure on your part. It's not a signal that you're losing her. It's proof that you already matter more than you think. Most men don't lose women because attraction fades. They lose them because they panic at the exact moment attraction deepens. They mistake emotional friction for rejection. They mistake tension for danger. And in trying to eliminate discomfort, they eliminate their own leverage. The real mistake was never losing her. It was destroying the advantage they already had. When you understand this, everything shifts. You stop chasing clarity. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop trying to stabilize emotions that aren't yours to manage. A man who controls his emotional responses controls the dynamic, not by force, not by manipulation, but by presence. When you don't collapse under pressure, pressure stops being a weapon. When you don't fear her reactions, they stop controlling you. And when you no longer need to hold on tightly, she starts holding on instead. This is the level most men never reach, not because it's complicated, but because it requires emotional discipline. If this perspective changed the way you see past situations, hit like. If you want to keep developing the kind of clarity and control most men never learn, make sure you subscribe. And if you've ever experienced that moment where she reacted and you didn't understand why, drop a comment, because now you do. This isn't about winning her, it's about mastering yourself. And once you do that, every man has asked himself this question in silence. Does she really love me, or am I just wasting my time? It's the doubt that eats away at your confidence, the thought that keeps you up at night. And here's the truth. If you don't know the signs, you'll never have the answer. Women don't always speak their heart, but they always reveal it in what they do. That's why today, I'm going to give you the 12 things women only do for the men they truly love. By the end of this video, you'll know if her love is real or if you've been fooling yourself all along. You're here because deep down, you already sense something. Maybe she loves you, maybe she doesn't, but you want the truth. And trust me, you're not alone. Men everywhere face the same doubt. So before we dive deeper, subscribe, hit like, and drop a quick comment below. Have you ever felt unsure about her feelings? Write yes or no. Because what's coming next will either confirm your fear or give you the reassurance you've been waiting for. Number 1. She introduces you to her friends and family. When a woman truly loves a man, she doesn't hide him in the shadows. She wants the people who matter most in her life to know who you are. Think about it. If she's keeping you away from her family, if she avoids posting you on social occasions, if she never mentions your name in conversations with her closest circle, what does that really mean? It means she hasn't chosen you with pride. Love has no need for secrecy. When a woman loves you, she naturally wants to blend her world with yours. She doesn't feel embarrassed to say, "This is my man." Instead, she feels proud to stand beside you, because to her, you're not just someone she's dating, You're someone she's investing her emotions and her future into. Now, let me give it to you straight. If she keeps you hidden, you're not the main character in her story. You're just a placeholder. And that's dangerous. A woman who truly loves will bridge the gap between your world and hers. She'll invite you to meet her family, not just as a guest, but as someone who belongs. When a woman brings you into her inner circle, it's more than an introduction. It's a declaration. She's saying, "You're not temporary. You're part of my life." Number 2, she invests time and stays through the long haul. Every man needs to understand this. Time is the ultimate test of love. Anyone can play sweet for a few weeks, even a few months. But when challenges show up, when the excitement fades and real life begins, that's when you see who's really there for you. A woman who truly loves you doesn't vanish when things get inconvenient. She doesn't disappear the moment you stop entertaining her, or when life throws struggles at you. Instead, she stays. She shows up when you're sick, when you're broke, when you're doubting yourself. That's the kind of loyalty that can't be faked. Here's the truth. Women who are only in it for fun or convenience will cut ties once they get what they want. They'll leave you hanging, confused about what went wrong. But the woman who genuinely loves you doesn't measure the relationship by what she can extract from you. She measures it by what you can build together. The long haul is not glamorous. It's messy, it's unpredictable, and it requires sacrifice. And when a woman endures all of that with you, without flinching, it's because her love is anchored in something real. A woman who stays through the storms is not just with you, she has chosen you. And in love, that choice means everything. Number 3, she confides in you deeply. Pay attention here, because this is one of the clearest signs of real love. When a woman opens up her world to you, she isn't just talking, she's surrendering a part of herself that she doesn't show to anyone else. A woman in love doesn't just tell you about what she ate for lunch or how stressful her day was. She reveals her fears, her childhood scars, her dreams, and the insecurities she hides from the rest of the world. That level of honesty isn't casual, it's sacred. And if she chooses to share it with you, it means she sees you as more than a boyfriend. She sees you as a partner she can trust with her soul. Here's the reality. If she doesn't love you, she won't risk being vulnerable. She'll keep conversations shallow. She'll deflect when things get serious, and she'll never let you close enough to see the truth. Trust is expensive, and a woman only spends it on the man she loves. When she confides in you, she's not just sharing information, she's testing your ability to protect her heart. How you respond to her honesty determines whether she feels safe to keep building with you. If she gives you her deepest truths, understand this. You're not just in her life, you're inside her heart. Number 4, she prioritizes time with you over friends. A woman's schedule is the clearest reflection of her values. No matter how busy she is, no matter how many people demand her attention, a woman in love finds a way to make time for the man who matters most. This doesn't mean she abandons her friends or isolates herself from her circle. Balance is healthy, and you should never expect her to cut everyone else off. But notice the pattern. If you consistently come second to her social life, if you always have to fight for a place in her calendar, then understand this. She hasn't placed you at the center of her priorities. A woman who loves you will cancel plans when you truly need her. She'll choose to spend a quiet night with you instead of chasing constant excitement with others. Not because she's forced to, but because being with you brings her more fulfillment than being anywhere else. Men often ignore this detail, but it's critical. When she values your presence above everything else, she's showing you where her heart truly belongs. If, on the other hand, she constantly chooses the party, the friends, the distractions, then you're just another option, not her choice. Time is the most expensive gift she can give you. When she offers it freely, without hesitation, That's love in action. Number 5. She feels comfortable not being perfect around you. In the beginning of a relationship, most women put on their best face. Perfect makeup, polished words, flawless behavior. It's all part of the performance to impress. But love strips away the performance. When a woman loves you, she no longer feels the need to pretend. She lets you see her without the mask. She's not afraid for you to catch her on a bad day, in sweatpants with messy hair. She doesn't panic if her jokes fall flat, or if she reveals quirks that others might find strange. Around you, she breathes easier because she knows she doesn't have to earn your acceptance. It's already there. Here's the cold truth. If she's always on, if she never shows you her raw side, then she doesn't feel safe enough to be herself with you. And that means her heart hasn't chosen you completely. Perfection is exhausting, and no one can keep it up forever. When she loves you, she trusts you with the unpolished version of herself. She trusts that you'll still see her beauty beyond the presentation. Understand this. When a woman drops her guard, it isn't carelessness, it's intimacy. She's showing you her reality, not her performance. And if she's willing to be real with you, that's love, speaking louder than words ever could. Number 6, she stops entertaining other men. This is a line every man needs to pay attention to. Before she chose you, she may have had plenty of options. Men calling, texting, trying to take her out. But when a woman falls in love, those other voices fade into the background. She no longer needs the validation, the attention, or the thrill of knowing other men want her. Because in her mind, she has already found the one who matters. If she's still flirting, still keeping backup plans, still leaving the door open for other men to walk in, then hear me clearly. You are not her priority. You're just one of many. A woman in love doesn't juggle candidates. She commits. Some men fool themselves by ignoring the signs. They see the suspicious messages, the constant attention from strangers, and they pretend it's harmless. But love doesn't leave room for competition. If she's serious about you, she'll make it clear to the world and to herself that her energy belongs to one man, you. The truth is simple. When she stops entertaining other men, it's not just about exclusivity. It's about respect. She's saying, I've chosen you, and I don't need anyone else. That's not weakness. That's loyalty. And if you don't see that shift, you need to ask yourself if she's really chosen you at all. Number 7, she sees you in her future. A woman in love doesn't just think about the present moment. She envisions tomorrow, and you're standing right there beside her. Pay close attention to how she talks about the future. Does she include you in her plans, or are you always absent from the picture? When she loves you, she naturally imagines life with you in it. She'll talk about the kind of home she wants to live in, the trips she dreams of taking together, even the family she hopes to build. She doesn't speak in terms of me. She speaks in terms of we. That's not casual talk. That's her heart projecting commitment. On the other hand, if every conversation about the future excludes you, that's not an accident. It's a warning. She's keeping her options open because she doesn't see you as permanent. And if you're honest with yourself, you'll feel that absence. Here's the truth. Women don't fantasize about men they don't value. They don't invest their imagination in someone temporary. If she's painting a future with you, it's because she's already chosen to build her life around you. So listen carefully. If her future has space for you, it's not just a dream. It's her way of telling you, I want you in my forever. Number 8, she shares every detail of her life with you. When a woman loves you, you become the first person she thinks about, whether something good happens, something bad, or even something trivial. You're the one she wants to celebrate with, the one she wants to cry to, the one she wants to tell every random story to. This is not about oversharing for the sake of talking. It's about intimacy. When she loves you, her instinct is to weave you into the fabric of her daily life. Every detail she shares is her way of saying, I want you to be part of my world. It means she values your perspective, your reaction, your presence in even the smallest corners of her existence. Here's the sharp truth. If she keeps you out of her daily narrative, she hasn't let you all the way in. If you only get fragments, if she hides important parts of her day or her struggles, then you're not the man she trusts with her whole self. Pay attention, because this is how women bond. Love makes her want to connect with you from sunrise to midnight, and when you become her first call, her last message, and the constant thread running through her day, that's no accident. That's her heart choosing you again and again. Number 9, she looks past your flaws. Every man has weaknesses, bad habits, mistakes, insecurities. We all carry them. The question is not whether you're perfect, but whether she's willing to stay even after seeing the imperfections. When a woman truly loves you, she doesn't pretend your flaws don't exist. She sees them clearly, but she chooses to look beyond them. She doesn't excuse destructive behavior, but she has the patience to work through the rough edges with you. She believes in the man you are becoming, not just the man you are today. That belief is powerful. It gives you the drive to rise, to improve, to become someone better, because she saw potential where others only saw problems. Here's the cold reality. If she doesn't love you, your flaws will be her exit door. The moment things get inconvenient, she'll use your shortcomings as a reason to walk away. Love, however, doesn't walk at the first sign of imperfection. Love leans in. Love stays when it's easier to leave. Understand this. Her patience with your flaws is not weakness, it's commitment. It's her way of saying, I know you're not perfect, but I still choose you. And in a world where people abandon each other for less, that kind of loyalty is rare. Number 10, she remembers the little things that matter to you. Love is not proven in grand gestures, it's revealed in the details. A woman who truly loves you pays attention, not just to the big events, but to the subtle preferences, the small remarks, the hidden details that most people overlook. She remembers the song you played on your worst day because it lifted your spirit. She remembers the way you take your coffee, the story behind your scar, or the exact date you achieved something important. These details may seem small to you, but to her, they are priceless. Why? Because they come from listening with intention, and listening is love in action. Here's the truth. A woman who doesn't love you won't store those details in her memory. She might nod, she might smile, but she won't carry it with her. If you constantly feel forgotten, it's because you were never truly prioritized. But when she recalls the little things, when she surprises you with her memory of what you thought was insignificant, she's sending a powerful message. I see you, I value you, I carry you with me. Never underestimate this. Love lives in the details, and when she remembers them, it means you've carved out a permanent place in her heart. Number 11, she proudly calls you her man. A woman who truly loves you doesn't hesitate to let the world know where she stands. She doesn't hide you behind vague labels like a friend or someone I know. She claims you openly, without fear, without hesitation. And that public acknowledgement matters more than most men realize. When she introduces you as her man, she's drawing a line. She's telling other men that her heart is spoken for, and she's signaling to her circle that you are more than temporary. This isn't just about words, it's about ownership of the relationship. Love isn't ashamed to be seen. But here's the cold truth. If she avoids putting a name to what you are, if she keeps you in the shadows while presenting herself as single to the world, you're not her chosen one. You're her option, her safety net, her convenience. And a man who ignores that reality will end up trapped in a one-sided fantasy. A woman in love doesn't just feel it in private, she confirms it in public. When she says, "This is my man," She's not making a casual remark. She's declaring her loyalty. And in a time where so many people fear commitment, a woman who proudly claims you is revealing just how deeply she's invested. Number 12. She compromises for the relationship. Love is not about one person always getting their way. It's about meeting in the middle. A woman who truly loves you will not stubbornly cling to her pride at the expense of your bond. She's willing to bend, to adjust, and to sacrifice small comforts if it means building something stronger with you. This doesn't mean she abandons her values. Real compromise never asks her to betray who she is at the core. But it does mean she's willing to shift her schedule, reconsider her habits, or even confront her fears, all because she believes the relationship is worth it. That's not weakness, it's strength. It's a sign that her love for you outweighs her desire to always be right. Here's the sharp truth. If she refuses to compromise on anything, then you're not building a partnership. You're stuck in a power struggle. And power struggles don't nurture love. They destroy it. But when a woman chooses to compromise, she's sending you a powerful message. She's saying, I care enough about us to change, to grow, and to put our future above my ego. That's what makes relationships last. Not perfection, but the willingness to adapt together. A woman who compromises for you has proven one thing beyond doubt. She's not just in love with the idea of being with you, she's in love with the reality of building with you. You've just walked through the 12 undeniable signs that reveal whether a woman truly loves you. These aren't abstract theories. They are behavioral truths, actions that speak louder than words. And if you're honest with yourself, you already know where your situation stands. Here's the reality. Love is not hidden. It doesn't make excuses. It doesn't keep you waiting in confusion. And it doesn't leave you second-guessing your worth. If she shows you these 12 signs, you don't have to wonder. You already have your answer. She's invested, she's chosen you, and she's showing it every single day through what she does, not just what she says. But if you notice the opposite, if she hides you, keeps her options open, avoids vulnerability, or refuses to compromise, you need to face the truth. You're not her priority. And the longer you ignore that, the more you risk losing your time, your energy, and your self-respect. This is your wake-up call. Don't chase illusions. Don't settle for being a placeholder in someone else's life. You deserve more than that. And if you've been blessed with a woman who demonstrates most of these signs, then honor that by being the man who matches her loyalty and commitment. Because real love is rare, and when you find it, you don't take it for granted. Now, here's what I want you to do. Take a hard look at your relationship through the lens of these 12 truths. If you see her in them, hold her close. If you don't, it's time to ask yourself why you're still there. And if this message hit you, don't just walk away and forget it. Subscribe right now, because every video here is another weapon for your mind. Tools to help you take back control, protect your heart, and never again settle for less than you deserve. Share this with another man who needs the truth. Leave your thoughts in the comments. And remember, the power in love belongs to the man who sees clearly and acts with strength. There is one thing, just one, that if you do it right, will make women not only want you, but feel unable to let you go. Not your looks, not your money, not your charm, your lines, or your game. This is something far more powerful and far more dangerous. Because when this is done correctly, a woman doesn't simply choose you. She needs you. She feels pulled toward you, drawn back to you, even when logic tells her she shouldn't. And when it's done wrong, you don't create desire. You create obsession, emotional chaos, a situation you can't easily escape. So here's the uncomfortable question you need to sit with for a moment. Why is it that some men barely try, yet women can't stop chasing them, while others do everything right and still get replaced? The answer isn't flattering, but it changes everything you think you know about attraction. Attraction isn't logical. It's psychological. And once you understand the mechanism behind it, you stop guessing and you stop chasing. Before we go any further, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you're here to understand women beyond fantasies and surface-level advice, you're in the right place. Now let's talk about what women actually chase and why most men never see it coming. Most men believe attraction is built on being wanted. That if a woman wants you, your attention, your presence, your effort, you're doing something right. And at first, that feels reassuring. Want feels like progress. Want feels like validation. But want is weak. A woman can want many things at the same time. She wants affection. She wants stability. She wants excitement. She wants to feel desired. None of those wants bind her. None of them anchor her. Want is optional. And anything optional can be replaced the moment something slightly better appears. Need is different. Need isn't a preference. It's not a conscious decision. Need operates below logic, below standards, below promises. When something is tied to a woman's sense of emotional stability, when it becomes part of how she regulates how she feels, she doesn't simply choose it, she orbits it. Think about how easily wants shift. She wants a certain lifestyle until another lifestyle feels more appealing. She wants a certain man until another man offers a better version of the same feeling. Want has a short memory. Want is loyal only to convenience. But need doesn't behave that way. Need is rooted in emotional survival. It's what the nervous system reaches for when it wants relief, grounding, stimulation, or reassurance. When a woman needs something, removing it creates discomfort, anxiety, a sense of lack she can't ignore. And the mind will do almost anything to eliminate that discomfort. This is where most men lose the plot. They work endlessly to be wanted, more attentive, more available, more accommodating, without realizing that every time they make themselves easily accessible, they reinforce one dangerous truth. I am replaceable. Because if you give her everything without friction, without tension, without emotional consequence, you teach her that your presence isn't essential. It's optional. And optional things are always the first to go. When attraction shifts from want to need, the dynamic changes completely. She doesn't evaluate you the same way. She doesn't compare you rationally. She doesn't ask whether you're the best option. She asks herself how she feels without you, and she doesn't like the answer. This is the distinction that rewires attraction at its core. Women replace what they want. They chase what they need. And until you understand that difference, not intellectually, but viscerally, you'll keep mistaking effort for leverage and attention for power. Men often tell themselves a comforting story. She misses me because I was good to her, because you listened, because you showed up, because you treated her better than the last guy. That story feels noble. It also keeps you powerless. Women don't become attached to people. They become attached to states, emotional states, psychological experiences, the way their body settles or lights up around a specific man. When a woman says she misses you, she's not longing for your personality traits. She's not replaying your effort. She's responding to the absence of a feeling she no longer has access to. Calm, excitement, relief, tension, validation, whatever state you triggered in her nervous system. That's why two men can behave in completely opposite ways and still create obsession or indifference. One man can be attentive, consistent, emotionally available, and still easy to forget. Another can be flawed, inconsistent, even distant, and remain impossible to replace. The difference isn't character, it's emotional dependency. Dependency forms when your presence regulates how she feels. When being with you quiets something inside her, or activates something she can't generate on her own. At that point, Your absence doesn't just create sadness. It creates imbalance. And imbalance demands correction. This is where logic breaks down. She may know you're not perfect. She may even know the relationship isn't ideal. But knowledge doesn't override dependency. The body pulls harder than the mind, and the body always seeks what restores equilibrium. This is why women leave men they should want and chase men they can't explain. This is why doing everything right doesn't guarantee loyalty. And this is why trying harder often makes things worse. Here's the line most men need to hear without flinching. She doesn't miss you. She misses how she feels when she's with you. Once you understand that, attraction stops being mysterious. It becomes mechanical. Not in a manipulative sense, but in a precise one. You stop performing for approval and start recognizing leverage. Because the moment you become the source of an emotional state she can't easily replace, comparison ends, competition fades, and chasing begins, quietly, internally, often before she's even aware of it herself. Every woman carries an emotional gap. Not because she's broken, not because she's weak, but because modern life quietly creates shortages where they hurt the most. Pressure to perform, pressure to be composed, pressure to be desirable, independent, agreeable, ambitious, often all at once. Over time, something gets neglected, something goes unmet, and that absence becomes a void. An emotional void isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It operates silently, shaping preferences, reactions, and attraction patterns without ever asking for permission. And once you know how to see it, you start understanding women in a way most men never do. This void isn't about what she says she wants. It's about what her nervous system is starving for. There are 4 primary emotional voids that drive female attraction. Not dozens, not infinite variations. 4. And every woman carries at least one as dominant. Validation, excitement, escape, challenge. These aren't personality traits. They're emotional deficits. Gaps created by routine, by expectation, by social pressure, by boredom, by overexposure to men who all feel the same. And when one of these voids goes unfilled for long enough, it begins to pull. That pull is attraction. When a man unknowingly fills one of these voids, he doesn't feel special. He feels confusing, hard to explain, difficult to replace. She may not even label it as attraction at first, just a sense that being around him feels different, necessary, stabilizing or electrifying in a way she can't manufacture on her own. This is where power enters the equation. Because when you become the source that fills an emotional void, you stop being evaluated like other men. You're no longer competing on the same scale. She doesn't weigh you against options. She weighs you against the discomfort of losing access to that emotional relief. But this power isn't neutral. Filling an emotional void creates dependence. Dependence creates attachment. And attachment, when mishandled, slides quietly into obsession. That line is thin, and most men don't even realize they've crossed it until they're trapped inside a dynamic they can't control. Understanding the void doesn't just explain attraction. It explains why it can turn dark when handled without awareness. And now that you see the map, the real question becomes, which void is she carrying, and how does it change everything that follows? Validation is the most misunderstood force in attraction. Most men think more validation equals more desire, more compliments, more reassurance, more affirmation. And at first, it seems to work. She smiles, she responds, she leans in. Then something shifts. Because validation doesn't create attachment when it's constant. It creates comfort. And comfort, when it's predictable, becomes invisible. The nervous system stops responding to what it can count on. What's always available stops carrying value. Women live in a world of evaluation, social media, work, dating. Attention is everywhere. And because it's everywhere, it's cheap. So validation only becomes powerful when it's unpredictable, when it's earned, when it's selective. This is why inconsistent validation, given deliberately, not carelessly, hits so much harder than endless praise. When she doesn't know when she'll receive your approval, her mind fills in the gaps. Dopamine spikes, anticipation builds. She starts adjusting her behavior, subtly, unconsciously, to regain that feeling. Not because she wants to impress you, but because her nervous system wants the reward again. Give validation too freely, and you teach her that your approval has no cost. Withhold it entirely, and you create distance without connection. But when validation comes and goes with intention, it becomes something she chases without realizing she's chasing it. Then there's excitement. Most women aren't bored because their lives are empty. They're bored because their emotional landscape is flat. Routine, responsibility, predictability. The same conversations, the same outcomes, the same men saying the same things in slightly different voices. Excitement isn't about chaos, it's about contrast. A man who introduces emotional spikes, moments that feel different, unexpected, charged, cuts through that flatness instantly. He doesn't overwhelm. He disrupts. He creates tension where there was none, curiosity where there was familiarity. This is why excitement is addictive. Not because it's loud, but because it breaks the pattern. Unpredictability activates attention. Teasing activates play. Mystery activates imagination. And imagination does more work than effort ever could. Once her mind starts filling in emotional gaps on its own, you've stepped out of the role of entertainer and into the role of stimulus. Here's the truth most men resist. Women don't get addicted to men. They get addicted to the emotional experience men provide. Validation makes her feel seen. Excitement makes her feel alive. When you become the source of both, without over-delivering either, you stop being one option among many. You become the emotional high she can't replicate on demand. And once that happens, attraction no longer needs persuasion. It sustains itself. Escape is one of the most underestimated forces in attraction because it doesn't look dramatic from the outside. It looks quiet, subtle, almost boring, and that's exactly why it's so powerful. Most women are always on, managing impressions, managing responsibilities, managing expectations, work, family, social pressure, appearance, performance. Even relaxation often comes with an unspoken requirement to stay composed. Very few spaces allow her to drop all of that. When a man becomes a place where she doesn't have to explain herself, impress, or hold it together, something shifts. Her body relaxes around him. Her mind slows down. The constant internal noise fades. That relief is not intellectual. It's physical. And once the nervous system associates you with that feeling, it starts craving access to it. Escape isn't about fixing her problems. It's about temporarily removing her from them. You become the environment where she can exhale, where she doesn't have to be on brand, where there's no performance, no evaluation, no pressure to maintain control. That kind of emotional relief is rare, and rarity creates value. Then there's challenge. This is the part most men misunderstand because they confuse challenge with arrogance or coldness. That's not what creates attraction. What creates attraction is resistance. The uncomfortable truth is this: most men are easy to read, easy to access, easy to win over. They over-explain, they over-invest. They rush to prove value before any value has been earned, and ease kills desire. People place higher value on what requires effort, not because they enjoy suffering, but because effort signals worth. When a man doesn't immediately bend to please, doesn't scramble for attention, doesn't reshape himself to fit expectations, he introduces friction, and friction creates focus. A man who has standards, boundaries, and a life that doesn't orbit around approval becomes a natural challenge. not by acting distant, but by being anchored. He doesn't chase validation, so his attention feels meaningful when it's given. Scarcity doesn't mean absence, it means selectivity. When your time, energy, and approval aren't automatically available, they carry weight. She can't assume access. She has to engage, to lean in, to invest. Escape makes her feel safe. Challenge makes her feel stimulated. Together, they form a powerful loop. Relief paired with tension, comfort paired with pursuit. And once that loop is established, attraction stops being something you push for. It pulls her in on its own terms. At this point, most men make the same mistake. They start trying to be all four things at once. More validating, more exciting, more comforting, more distant. And in doing that, they dilute everything. You don't need to fill every emotional void. You only need to recognize the one she's already carrying. And you don't do that by listening to what she says she wants. You do it by watching what she complains about. Complaints are leaks. They reveal shortages. If she constantly talks about how bored she is with dating, how all guys feel the same, how nothing excites her anymore, that's not cynicism. That's a hunger for stimulation. Her system is craving novelty, unpredictability, emotional spikes. She doesn't need reassurance. She needs contrast. If she talks about being overwhelmed, exhausted, stretched thin, constantly needed by everyone around her, that's not drama. That's pressure. She's carrying too much. What she needs isn't fixing. It's relief. A place where she doesn't have to perform or manage anything at all. If she fishes for compliments, downplays herself, or subtly seeks reassurance, pay attention. That's not vanity. That's a validation gap. And flooding her with praise won't solve it. Strategic, selective approval will. And if she seems unimpressed by men who chase her, dismissive of attention, bored by effort, that's not arrogance. That's a challenge void. She's surrounded by availability. What's missing is resistance. The key here is restraint. You don't exaggerate your role. You don't perform. You don't force behaviors that don't align with who you already are. You simply occupy the role that fits the gap. When you do that, attraction doesn't feel manufactured. It feels natural, effortless, almost accidental. Because you're no longer trying to create desire. You're responding to an existing imbalance. And imbalance, when addressed correctly, always pulls attention toward its solution. There's a line most men never see until it's already behind them. Desire and obsession don't announce when one becomes the other. The transition is quiet, gradual. It happens the moment a woman stops wanting access to you and starts needing it to feel balanced. When you become the source of emotional regulation, you hold real power. Not symbolic power, not alpha fantasy power, psychological power. The kind that can pull someone towards you even when they're conflicted, even when they know better. And that's where things get dangerous. Because power amplifies who you already are. In the hands of a weak man, it turns into manipulation. He enjoys the chase too much. He withholds to feel important. He feeds dependency because it makes him feel secure. And eventually, the dynamic collapses under its own weight, into resentment, chaos, or emotional damage on both sides. In the hands of a grounded man, power looks different. He doesn't exploit the void. He respects it. He understands that creating emotional pull doesn't mean trapping someone inside it. He knows when to apply tension and when to release it, when to step forward and when to step back. Strength isn't about seeing how deeply you can hook someone. It's about knowing you don't need to. When attraction crosses into obsession, it stops being desire. It becomes fear of loss, and fear is never a stable foundation. It erodes trust. It distorts behavior. It turns connection into control. This is why the most dangerous men aren't the ones who lack influence, but the ones who never learned restraint. If you choose to understand these dynamics, understand this as well. Mastery isn't measured by how many people chase you. It's measured by how responsibly you handle the pull you create. because the same mechanism that makes you unforgettable can also make you destructive, depending entirely on who's using it. Attraction isn't about doing more. It never was. It's about positioning yourself in a woman's emotional world in a way that can't be casually replaced. When you stop trying to be impressive and start understanding how emotional dependency actually forms, you stop chasing outcomes. You start creating gravity. The one thing that changes everything is this: becoming the source of an emotional experience she cannot easily generate on her own. Not through force, not through performance, and not through manipulation, but through presence, restraint, and psychological clarity. When you understand the difference between want and need, you stop confusing effort with value. When you understand emotional dependency, you stop taking rejection personally. And when you recognize emotional voids, you stop guessing and start seeing patterns most men never notice. This is what puts you back in control. Not control over her, but control over yourself, your reactions, your boundaries, your availability, your standards. And paradoxically, that's what makes attraction sustainable instead of desperate. A man who doesn't beg isn't ignored. A man who doesn't chase isn't invisible. A man who understands his leverage doesn't need to prove anything. If this shifted the way you see attraction, even slightly, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Like the video so this message reaches the men who need it, and share it with someone who's still stuck trying harder instead of thinking deeper. And if you've ever been in a situation where a woman couldn't let go, or where you couldn't understand why she pulled away, leave a comment. Not for validation, for reflection. Because the moment you stop asking, how do I make her want me? And start asking, why does she feel different when I'm gone? You're no longer playing the same game. A woman can love you and still not respect you. Let that sink in. She can sleep with you, commit to you, build a life with you, and still, deep down, not see you as the man to follow. That's the part no one warns men about. Most men think respect comes automatically with time, effort, and loyalty. It doesn't. Respect is a ranking, and women reveal it through behavior, not words. There are 6 unmistakable things women only do for men they truly respect. They don't negotiate them, they don't fake them, and they don't give them out of kindness. If you've ever felt like her energy shifted, like your voice carries less weight than it used to, this isn't about fixing her mood. It's about understanding the 6 signals that tell you exactly where you stand before it's too late. Attraction is easy. It's emotional. It's reactive. Respect is rare, and it's earned on a completely different level. A woman can sleep with you. She can love you. She can stay in a relationship with you for years. And still not respect you. That's the part most men don't want to hear, because they confuse presence with position. Attraction is how she feels about you. Respect is how she ranks you. When attraction is high but respect is low, you don't become her partner. You become her emotional safety net, the man she leans on, vents to, confides in, but doesn't follow. You're there to support her feelings, not shape the direction. And that's where men get stuck. They think consistency, patience, and understanding will eventually earn authority. It doesn't. It earns comfort. Without respect, you're not leading the relationship. You're reacting inside it. You adjust. You explain. You accommodate. And slowly, without a single argument, your position drops. Here's the truth most men learn too late. A woman doesn't follow the man she likes. She follows the man she respects. And everything you're about to hear next flows from that one rule. Number 1, she listens and she actually adjusts. Most women are very good at talking. They can express emotions, explain feelings, unpack experiences for hours. But listening, real listening, That's selective. Here's the difference most men miss. A woman can hear you without taking you seriously. She can nod, agree, even apologize, and change nothing. That's not misunderstanding. That's your words landing with no weight. When a woman truly respects you, something subtle but powerful shifts. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't rush to defend herself. She doesn't twist your point into a debate. She goes quiet, not cold, focused. Because in her mind, what you're saying isn't noise. It's guidance. You bring something up once, and it sticks. You express a boundary, and she adjusts without needing reminders. You correct a behavior, and you don't get resistance, excuses, or emotional gymnastics. Why? Because respect changes how her brain categorizes your voice. It moves you from the emotional input box into the directional authority box. Your words stop being opinions and start becoming reference points. Now look at the opposite scenario. If you constantly have to repeat yourself, if every concern turns into a long explanation, if she agrees in the moment but nothing ever changes, you're not leading. You're background noise, and no woman respects background noise. This is where a lot of good men lose their footing. They think patience will eventually translate into authority, so they soften their tone. They over-explain. They try to sound more understanding, more careful, more accommodating. All that does is teach her that your words don't require action. A woman doesn't adjust for a man she sees as equal. She adjusts for a man she sees as above the emotional chaos, someone whose perspective actually matters. And notice this. When respect is real, adjustment doesn't come with attitude. There's no sighing, no eye-rolling, no passive resistance. She doesn't feel diminished by aligning with you. She feels anchored. Because in her mind, ignoring you would feel like being out of sync with something solid. Here's the line every man needs to sit with. No woman respects a man she can ignore. If your words don't move her behavior, your position is already compromised. Number 2, she watches her mouth around you. If you want to know how a woman truly sees you, don't start with her actions. Start with her tone. Because language is never accidental. It's a ranking system. Sarcasm, slick comments, little jokes at your expense, backhanded remarks disguised as just playing. That's not personality. That's not humor. And it's definitely not comfort. That's power testing. When a woman doesn't respect a man, she speaks to him the way she speaks to people she feels above. She pushes, she pokes, she sees what she can get away with, not consciously, but instinctively. Every sarcastic comment is a quiet question. How much can I lower you without consequences? Now watch what happens when respect is present. That edge disappears. Not because she's afraid of you, but because her nervous system doesn't register you as someone she can casually run over. The filter turns on automatically. She chooses her words. She doesn't mock you in front of others. She doesn't take small verbal shots to feel bigger. And here's the part men misunderstand. She's not walking on eggshells. She's calibrating. Women don't speak recklessly to men they can't afford to disrespect. The same way you don't joke carelessly with someone whose authority you recognize, she doesn't casually diminish a man she sees as solid. Pay attention to patterns. Does she talk to you like one of her girlfriends? Does she tease you the same way she teases men she doesn't take seriously? Does she correct you publicly, challenge you sarcastically, or laugh at you instead of with you? Those aren't quirks. They're signals. A woman who respects you protects your position, especially with her words. She understands, even if she can't articulate it, that how she speaks to you shapes how she feels about you. Disrespect doesn't start with betrayal. It starts with tone. And once she gets comfortable lowering you verbally, the internal hierarchy is already set. This is why men who tolerate disrespectful language slowly lose authority. Every ignored comment teaches her that your boundaries are negotiable. Every forced laugh trains her nervous system to rank you lower. Here's the truth most men avoid. How she speaks to you is how she ranks you. If her mouth has no filter around you, it's because her respect already slipped or never existed in the first place. Number 3, she changes her behavior without the attitude. There's a difference most men don't catch at first, and by the time they do, the damage is already done. It's the difference between hearing you and adjusting for you. A woman can listen to your concern and still disrespect you. You know that moment. You bring something up calmly, clearly, and she responds with, "That's just how I am." You're being too sensitive. Every woman does that. That's not honesty. That's defense. When a woman doesn't respect a man, every request feels like an attack on her identity. She has to protect herself. She has to explain. She has to justify. And suddenly, a simple boundary turns into a full-blown negotiation. But when respect is real, the response looks very different. She doesn't argue. She doesn't dramatize it. She doesn't turn it into a referendum on her personality. She adjusts, quietly, not because she's afraid of losing you, but because being out of alignment with you feels wrong. In her internal world, your standards matter. Your expectations carry weight. So correction doesn't trigger her ego. It triggers calibration. This is what men misunderstand about leadership in relationships. Leadership doesn't require force. It requires position. When a woman sees you as a leader, adjusting her behavior doesn't feel like submission. It feels like order, like sinking herself to something stable. That's why there's no attitude attached to it. No size. No passive-aggressive compliance. No emotional tax afterward. She doesn't need convincing. She doesn't need follow-ups. She doesn't need long explanations about why it matters to you. She just does better. Now contrast that with the man who constantly has to manage her reactions, who walks on eggshells just to avoid conflict, who avoids bringing things up because it always turns into an argument. That man isn't leading. He's negotiating from below. And here's the hard line most men need to hear. If every correction turns into a fight, you're not leading. A woman who respects you doesn't challenge your standards. She aligns with them, because respect isn't loud. It's efficient. Number 4. She speaks about you with pride when you're not there. Respect reveals itself most clearly in your absence, not when you're sitting across from her, not when you're doing things for her, but when your name comes up and you're not in the room to hear it. This is where a lot of men get blindsided. A woman can be affectionate in private and still quietly diminish you in public. She might avoid mentioning you, downplay what you do, shrug when someone asks about you, or worse, justify being with you, as if she needs to explain her choice. That's not shyness. That's hesitation. When a woman respects a man, she doesn't hide him. She doesn't minimize him. She doesn't detach her identity from his presence. Her tone changes when she talks about you. There's weight behind it. She quotes you. She defends you. She references your perspective even when you're not there. And here's why this matters psychologically. Women are deeply aware of social positioning. Attaching themselves to a man, publicly, is a statement. It signals value, direction, and status. So they're selective. They don't put their name next to someone who lowers their perceived position. When she speaks about you with pride, it means she sees you as an extension of her standards. You're not just the man she sleeps with. You're the man she measures other men against. Now flip that. If she avoids talking about you, if she keeps your relationship vague, if she downplays your role in her life, that's not privacy. That's distance. It means, on some level, she hasn't fully aligned herself with you. And alignment is impossible without respect. This is why men who lack respect feel invisible outside the relationship. They exist in a private bubble, but not in her broader world. She keeps options open. She keeps narratives flexible. A woman who respects you doesn't do that. She stands on the choice she made. Here's the line men need to stop ignoring. If she hides you, she doesn't respect you. Respect makes a woman proud to be associated with you, not because of what you provide, but because of who you are. Number 5. She seeks your input before making major decisions. There's a quiet but decisive shift that happens when a woman truly respects a man. She stops acting first and starts checking in. Attraction makes her want your attention. Respect makes her want your direction. When a woman sees you as a man with sound judgment, she naturally brings you into her decision-making process. Not because she needs permission, but because your perspective carries authority in her mind. She asks what you think before reacting emotionally. She pauses before committing to something big. She wants to know how you see the situation. That's not dependence. That's recognition. This is where many men get confused and accidentally talk themselves out of their position. They say things like, "Just do whatever makes you happy," thinking it sounds supportive. What it actually does is remove their role from the equation. A woman doesn't seek input from a man she sees as optional. When she respects you, your opinion becomes a stabilizer. It grounds her. She feels safer making decisions when she's aligned with your judgment. That's influence, not control. Now look at the opposite pattern. She makes major moves without mentioning them. She informs you after the fact. She treats your reaction as an inconvenience instead of a consideration. That dynamic tells you everything. You're not part of her internal compass. You're just someone who needs to be notified. And that's a dangerous downgrade. Men often tolerate this because they don't want to seem insecure or controlling. But leadership isn't about force. It's about being included before the decision is made. A woman who respects you doesn't fear your perspective. She values it. She knows you see angles she might miss when emotions run high. And here's the distinction every man needs to understand. Being included is respect. Being informed is not. If she only tells you after everything is already set in motion, your role has already been reduced. Respect invites your voice into the process, not as a courtesy, but as a necessity. Number 6, she stops the drama and starts bringing you peace. Drama is not random. It's not just how women are. And it's definitely not a sign of passion. Drama is a power test. When a woman doesn't respect a man, she creates emotional friction to see how grounded he really is. She pulls away to provoke a reaction. She starts arguments over nothing. She stirs tension just to feel the upper hand, not maliciously, instinctively. Chaos gives her control when stability doesn't. But when a woman meets a man she genuinely respects, something fundamental changes. She calms down. Not because she's bored, not because she's losing interest, but because her nervous system no longer feels the need to challenge him. A man who is internally solid doesn't react emotionally to tests. He doesn't chase. He doesn't over-explain. He doesn't fight for dominance. And because he can't be shaken, there's nothing to gain from creating turbulence. That's when peace appears. She stops manufacturing problems. She stops pushing buttons. She stops trying to win. Instead, she starts contributing. She becomes softer, not weaker, cooperative, not submissive. She brings stability into your life because she senses that you are already stable without her. This is the moment many men misread. They think, she's less dramatic. Maybe she's losing interest. No, she's losing the need to test. A woman only fights for control when she doesn't trust the man next to her to hold it. Once she respects you, she relaxes into alignment. She doesn't want to compete with you. She wants to complement you. And that's the key distinction. She no longer wants to challenge you. She wants to support you. Here's the truth most men never connect. Peace is not what a woman gives the man she's comfortable with. Peace is what she gives the man she can't shake. If your presence quiets her chaos instead of feeding it, respect has already taken root. And when a woman brings you peace, it's because she's stopped trying to take power from you. and started trusting you with it. What these 6 behaviors have in common isn't technique. They're not tricks you perform. They're not things you demand. They're responses. Each one is a reaction to the same underlying reality: position. When a woman truly respects a man, she naturally aligns with him. She listens because his words matter. She watches her tone because his position is solid. She adjusts without attitude because his standards feel legitimate. She speaks about him with pride because being connected to him elevates her. She seeks his input because his judgment is trusted. She brings peace because there's no need to fight for control. None of this comes from asking for it. All of it comes from who you are being. That's the part most men try to skip. They want the behaviors without the foundation, the obedience without the authority, the alignment without the leadership. And when they don't get it, they assume something is wrong with women. It isn't. Women don't withhold respect to punish men. They respond to what they perceive. And perception is shaped by consistency, boundaries, self-command, and direction, not by overgiving or emotional labor. When respect is present, power struggles disappear. She stops negotiating the hierarchy. She stops testing limits. She settles into alignment because it feels right, not because she's forced. Here's the shift every man has to make. You don't ask for respect. You don't negotiate for it. You become the kind of man it attaches itself to. These 6 behaviors aren't goals. They're evidence. And if they're missing, the answer isn't to chase harder. It's to look honestly at the position you're holding. If there's one truth you need to walk away with, it's this: women don't treat good men badly. They just don't follow men they don't respect. Most men never get clarity on that distinction. They assume effort equals authority. That loyalty should automatically earn leadership. And when it doesn't, they internalize the wrong lesson. They try harder, give more, explain themselves deeper. That's how men slowly erase their own position. If you didn't recognize yourself in those 6 behaviors, don't panic and don't blame her. A woman doesn't wake up one day deciding to downgrade a man. She responds to the role he's been holding all along. Respect doesn't come from chasing approval. It doesn't come from emotional availability without backbone. And it never comes from bargaining your standards away just to keep the peace. A man who is respected doesn't beg to be heard. He isn't afraid to be disagreed with, and he doesn't confuse being chosen with being followed. When you stop overgiving, stop explaining, stop reacting, something shifts. Not because you're trying to control her, but because you're finally controlling yourself. That's when respect has room to grow. So if this hit close to home, don't numb it. Use it. Subscribe if you're done being the man women get comfortable lowering. Comment if you've ever realized, too late, that your position slipped quietly. And share this with a man who's still being chosen, but never truly followed. Because the moment a woman truly respects you, she can't unsee it. And neither can you. Here's something men hate hearing, but need to hear. By the time you're wondering whether she wanted you to make a move, she's already made up her mind about you. Not because you failed, but because you waited. Women don't end attraction with arguments or explanations. They end it with silence, distance, and a quiet shift you never notice until it's too late. The most dangerous moments aren't obvious. They're subtle, they're calm, they feel unfinished, and that's exactly why most men miss them. There are 7 signs that tell you she's already open, already ready, already expecting you to step up. If you don't recognize them in real time, attraction doesn't stall. It expires. Women rarely say, make a move. Instead, they create conditions where a confident man naturally does. This isn't about pickup tricks or forcing anything. It's about reading behavior, timing, and emotional openings correctly. If you want to stop guessing and start seeing what most men miss, hit like and subscribe. Now let's break down exactly what those moments look like and what they demand from you. Number 1, She stops filling the silence. Most men panic when a conversation goes quiet. They feel the pressure to perform, to entertain, to say something, anything, to keep the moment alive. And without realizing it, they talk themselves right out of attraction. Here's the reframe you need to understand. Silence doesn't kill attraction. Misreading silence does. When a woman isn't interested, her nervous system looks for an exit. She fills the gap immediately. She reaches for her phone. She changes the subject. She talks just to avoid the discomfort. Her body is saying, I don't want to be here. But when she's attracted, something very different happens. She stops filling the silence, and she stays. The laughter fades. The conversation slows. And instead of escaping the space, she remains present. Her eyes don't wander. Her body doesn't close. She doesn't rush to rescue the moment. She lets it breathe. That pause isn't empty. That pause is loaded. Picture this. You're sitting next to her, maybe after a shared laugh. The noise drops away. There's a brief stillness. She looks at you without saying anything. Her posture stays open. Her lips part slightly. No phone, no distraction. This is where most men sabotage themselves. They start rambling. They crack a nervous joke. They ask a random, meaningless question just to break the tension, because they are uncomfortable with it. But that tension is the point. That quiet moment is her giving you space to lead. Emotionally, physically, masculinely. When she invites silence, she's watching what you do with it. Do you rush to fill it like someone seeking approval? Or do you stay grounded, present, and intentional? Because here's the truth, most men never hear. When you destroy that silence, you don't look polite, you look unsure. You signal that you don't know how to hold the moment. And leadership dies right there. That silence is her test without words. It's her saying, I feel safe here. Show me what you're going to do next. And if you don't step into it, she won't ask again. Number 2, she teases you and tests your confidence. When a woman starts teasing you, most men misunderstand what's actually happening. They think it's either harmless flirting or worse, disrespect. And because they misread it, they respond the wrong way. They explain themselves. They seek approval. They try to win her back into a nice interaction. That's where attraction quietly drops. Teasing is not random. And it's definitely not accidental. When a woman teases you, she's applying pressure on purpose. She's creating a small emotional imbalance to see how you handle it. Not to embarrass you, not to insult you, but to measure you. Can you stay centered when the dynamic shifts? Or do you collapse the moment it stops being comfortable? She might say something like, you think you're smooth, don't you? Or, I don't know. You seem like trouble. On the surface, it sounds playful. Underneath, it's a test of leadership. She's watching closely to see if you chase validation or if you remain grounded in yourself. If you get defensive, flustered, or overly eager to explain, she learns something important about you very quickly. She learns that pressure destabilizes you, and that doesn't feel safe. Confidence under pressure is one of the strongest attraction signals a man can send, because it communicates emotional control. It says, I don't lose myself when the frame shifts. That's why teasing often increases when attraction increases. She's not pushing you away, she's pulling information out of you. Here's where most men fail. They try to pass the test by being clever, or agreeable, or overly charming. But the goal isn't to impress her with words. The goal is to remain unshaken. Because she's not teasing you to see if you're funny. She's teasing you to see if you're solid. If you respond calmly, with presence and light authority, attraction deepens. She feels more relaxed, more curious, more drawn in. But if you fold, even slightly, the impression sets fast. This man can't lead when the dynamic gets unpredictable. And once that impression forms, it's very hard to reverse. So remember this. She's not teasing you for entertainment. She's measuring how you hold yourself when the ground shifts beneath you. And if you pass, she doesn't pull back. She leans in. Number 3. The slow blink. This is one of the quietest signals a woman gives, and one of the most intimate. You won't catch it if you're scanning for excitement. You'll only notice it if you're present. The slow blink happens when she looks at you, and instead of blinking quickly and reflexively, her eyelids close slowly, deliberately, and reopen while her gaze stays on you. There's no exaggeration, no performance, just a calm, unguarded moment. This isn't flirting in the way most men think. It's trust. On a biological level, a slow blink signals nervous system safety. In the animal world, it's a sign of relaxation and connection. Cats do it when they feel secure. Humans, especially women, do it when their guard drops. Her body is saying something before her mind catches up. Imagine the moment. The conversation eases. Words become less important. You lock eyes, and instead of rushing to fill the space, she softens. Her blink slows. She doesn't look away. Time stretches just a little. That's not boredom. That's emotional openness. This is where many men make a costly mistake. They break eye contact. They shift in their seat. They look away to avoid feeling exposed. And in doing so, they snap the connection she was offering. Not because she demanded anything, but because she trusted you enough to stay. The slow blink is her nervous system relaxing in your presence. It's her saying, I feel safe enough here to stop guarding. And that's a rare state. Women don't enter it casually. When you recognize it, the response isn't to escalate aggressively. It's to stay grounded, to lean in slightly, to lower your voice, to let the moment deepen instead of rushing past it. Because if you pull away, the window closes. She won't argue. She won't ask you to come back. She'll simply rearm emotionally. The slow blink is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. But when it happens, attraction has already crossed into trust. And trust is where real connection and real opportunity begins. Number 4. She fixes her appearance for you. When a woman is attracted, her body reacts before her mind ever labels it as interest. This isn't vanity, this isn't insecurity, and it's definitely not something she's planning. It's instinct. You'll notice it in small, almost forgettable movements. She smooths her dress when you sit down. She adjusts her hair when you enter the conversation. She straightens her posture when she catches you looking. Maybe she checks her reflection, touches her necklace, or subtly moistens her lips. Most men see these behaviors and dismiss them as meaningless. Or worse, they assume, she's like that with everyone. But timing matters. Watch when she does it. Is it when you walk into the room? When your attention shifts toward her? When the interaction becomes more focused, more one-on-one? If her appearance changes in response to your presence, that's not random. That's reactive. Her subconscious is saying, this man's attention matters. Here's a detail most men overlook. Women do not invest effort where there is no emotional return. When she's neutral about you, her body stays neutral. No adjustments, no awareness, no self-presentation shift. Your background noise. But when attraction is there, her body tries to meet the moment. She elevates herself to match the connection forming between you. Think about how often this happens after a brief separation. She excuses herself, then returns looking slightly different. Hair repositioned, lip gloss refreshed, clothing adjusted just enough to be noticed. That wasn't coincidence. And here's the critical mistake men make. They shrink back instead of leaning in. They doubt their perception. They second-guess the signal. And in doing so, they waste the opening. Because this behavior is her quiet way of saying, I care how you see me. She doesn't adjust for the room. She doesn't adjust for the crowd. She adjusts for you. When you trigger that shift and fail to respond, the energy drops. The window closes. She recalibrates and pulls back into neutrality. But if you recognize it, if you stay present and grounded, you step out of the background. And once that happens, you're no longer just another man in the room. You're the variable changing how she shows up. Number 5. She stays engaged when she doesn't have to. One of the clearest signs of attraction has nothing to do with chemistry on the surface and everything to do with energy. Because when a woman isn't interested, her attention leaves before her body does. You'll feel it immediately. Her replies shorten. Her eyes drift. Her presence fades. Even if she's being polite, her energy is already halfway out the door. But when she's attracted, something different happens. She stays engaged, even when there's no reason to. The conversation doesn't have to be exciting. The topic doesn't have to be impressive. You could be talking about something completely ordinary, even forgettable, and she's still there, still listening, still reacting, still invested. That's not about the subject. That's about you. Women don't spend emotional energy on men they don't see as options. They conserve it. They protect it. So when she continues to engage, asking follow-up questions, laughing naturally, offering her own thoughts, she's doing something very specific. She's choosing connection. Pay attention to how she responds. Is she simply answering you? Or is she throwing the energy back, keeping the interaction alive? There's a massive difference between politeness and presence. Presence requires intention. Think about this scenario. The conversation lulls. Most men assume interest has faded. But she doesn't leave. She doesn't disengage. She stays right there, looking at you, contributing, waiting. That's not passive behavior. That's quiet investment. And here's where men misplay it. They keep talking instead of leading. They treat her engagement as something to maintain rather than something to move forward. They miss the fact that she's already done her part. When a woman stays emotionally present without incentive, she's signaling readiness. She's building rapport, so the next step feels natural, not forced. That's her way of saying, I'm here, I'm open, don't stall. Because if you don't act on that investment, she will eventually withdraw it. Not angrily, not dramatically. She'll just stop offering it. And once emotional investment pulls back, attraction follows. So understand this clearly. When she stays engaged, even when she doesn't have to, the door is already open. What she's watching for next is whether you're confident enough to walk through it. Number 6, she doesn't move away when you get close. The body answers questions long before the mind does, especially when it comes to attraction. Human beings have an automatic response to physical proximity. When someone we're uncomfortable with gets too close, our body reacts instantly. We lean back, we tense up, we create distance. This happens before logic, before politeness, before words. So when a woman doesn't move away, that matters more than most men realize. Imagine you're sitting next to her and your legs brush lightly. She doesn't shift. Or your arms touch and she leaves them there. You lean in to say something, and instead of pulling back, she holds eye contact, or even leans in slightly herself. That's not nothing. That's her nervous system signaling comfort and trust. When a woman allows you into her personal space without resistance, no stiffening, no withdrawal, no closing off, she's telling you that your presence feels safe, familiar, welcome. And here's where many men freeze. They notice the closeness, but fear takes over. What if I'm misreading this? What if I go too far? So they do nothing. They lock up. They wait. But hesitation in these moments doesn't read as respectful. It reads as uncertainty, because she already answered with her body. If she closes the distance herself, stands close, angles her body toward you, finds casual reasons to touch your hand or stay within reach, that's not accidental. That's invitation. And when you ignore that invitation, she doesn't correct you. She doesn't explain. She simply stops offering it. Here's the truth most men need to hear. Consent isn't only verbal. Comfort is communicated physically, constantly. And when she doesn't move away, she's giving you information. Her body already answered. Your mind just didn't catch up. This is where leadership matters. Not force, not aggression, presence, intentionality. Matching her energy without rushing past it. Because when she allows closeness and you fail to respond, she recalibrates. She assumes you're either not interested or not capable of leading the moment. And once that assumption forms, the window closes. So when she stays close, when she doesn't pull away, the responsibility quietly shifts to you. What you do next tells her everything she needs to know. Number 7. She creates moments for you to act. This is the sign that brings all the others together. By the time this happens, attraction isn't forming anymore. It's already formed. Here's the mistake most men make. They wait for permission. They wait for clear verbal confirmation. They wait for her to say something unmistakable, something that removes all risk. That moment rarely comes. Instead, a woman creates the moment. She slows things down. She changes the environment. She says something that feels slightly more personal than necessary, something that lingers in the air. I feel really comfortable around you. I've never done anything spontaneous like this before. It's nice being here, like this. On the surface, those statements sound casual, but they're not informational. They're directional. She's setting the stage and watching to see if you recognize it. Women who are attracted don't usually initiate the final move, not because they're passive, but because they want to respond. They want to feel chosen, desired, led into the moment. So instead of acting directly, they create opportunity. You'll notice it in how she positions herself, sitting closer, holding eye contact longer, letting silence stretch, bringing up intimacy without naming it outright. Everything slows, narrows, focuses. And if you've seen the previous signs, if she stayed in the silence, tested your confidence, softened her gaze, adjusted her appearance, invested her attention, and allowed closeness, then this moment isn't a question. It's an expectation. By now, she's already made a quiet decision. What she's waiting to see is whether you're capable of stepping into it. This is where hesitation costs the most. If you don't act, she won't explain what you missed. She won't guide you through it. She won't bring it up again. She'll simply reinterpret you. Not as a bad guy, not as someone who failed, but as someone who didn't get it. And once that perception settles in, attraction dissolves fast. Because this moment doesn't repeat itself. It only appears when timing, comfort, trust, and desire align. And when it does, the responsibility shifts fully onto you. So when she creates the moment, when everything slows and feels loaded, don't overthink it. Don't analyze it to death. Stay present. Take the breath. Step forward. She already opened the door. What she's waiting to see now is whether you're willing to walk through it. Attraction rarely disappears because a man does something wrong. More often, it dies because he does nothing at all. The signs you just learned aren't loud. They don't announce themselves. They don't come with guarantees. But they are clear, if you know how to read behavior instead of waiting for words. Silence that lingers, teasing that applies pressure, a gaze that softens, a body that stays close, attention that doesn't pull away, moments that feel intentionally set. These aren't accidents, they're signals. And here's the shift most men need to make. Women don't fall for explanations, hesitation, or perfect timing. They respond to presence, to decisiveness, to a man who understands the moment and steps into it without asking to be rescued from the risk. Attraction doesn't punish you for being imperfect. It punishes you for being absent. Because when a woman is ready and you don't move, she doesn't argue with reality. She accepts it and rewrites who you are in her mind. Not as someone who failed, but as someone who never showed up. Women don't remember you for what you said. They remember you for the moment you took charge, when it mattered. If this changed how you see those moments, subscribe. Not for entertainment, but for clarity. For perspective that helps you read situations before they pass you by. And if you've ever looked back and realized you missed a moment like this, leave a comment. Not out of regret, but awareness. Because once you see these signals clearly, you don't unsee them. And next time, you won't hesitate. She texts you just enough to keep you hooked, cancels plans with a sweet excuse, and still somehow makes you feel guilty for noticing. Sounds familiar? That's not bad luck. That's strategy. You've fallen into the quietest trap in modern dating, being the man she keeps on standby. But here's the twist. It's not her fault you're stuck there. It's yours, because you've been playing by rules that never favored you. If you've ever wondered why women chase one man but forget another, this is your wake-up call. In the next few minutes, I'll give you the 7 psychological steps that make a woman stop taking you for granted and start fighting for your attention. If you've ever been that man waiting for her text, wondering what changed, today is the day you stop waiting and start taking control. Before we move on, hit subscribe, like, and write one simple line in the comments. I'm done being an option. Say it out loud if you have to. That's your first step toward emotional reset. Because what comes next isn't theory. It's the start of your rebuild. And once you understand this first truth, everything about how you show up with women will start to shift. Number 1, read the room. If you've ever caught yourself waiting for her reply that never comes, replaying the same unanswered message on your phone, it's not bad luck. It's a pattern. You're being quietly downgraded. She's not saying it out loud, but every delay, every cancelled plan, every sorry, got busy is a silent signal. You're not the priority, you're the placeholder. When a woman's interest fades, she doesn't always leave. Sometimes she keeps you around just enough to feel wanted, without ever giving back the same energy. That's what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. It's when rewards are given inconsistently, just enough to keep you hooked, craving the next moment of affection. It's not love, it's emotional conditioning. The human brain reacts to uncertainty like a drug. Every time she disappears, then suddenly sends a "Hey stranger" text, dopamine spikes. You confuse that high with connection, when really it's dependency. You start chasing that rush, not her, but the illusion of what you thought she felt. And that's how good men stay stuck. Here's the truth most men don't want to face. She doesn't keep you around because she needs you. She keeps you around because she can. Because you haven't shown her that your absence costs something. You're available, predictable, and replaceable. The perfect emotional safety net. And let's be honest, you've probably told yourself she's just busy, or that she'll come around. That's not optimism, that's denial. Every time you excuse her behavior, you teach her it's acceptable. Every time you stay, you tell her you'll tolerate being plan B. Reading the room isn't about being bitter or playing hard to get, it's about clarity. It's the moment you stop negotiating your worth with someone who's already discounted it. So ask yourself, is she making space for you or just keeping you in storage? If she's treating you like a background character in her story, then it's time you stop auditioning for a lead role. Number 2, the law of reciprocity. In every connection, romantic, professional, or social, value only exists when energy flows both ways. The moment you start pouring more than you receive, the balance breaks and respect collapses. Most men don't realize it until it's too late. When you keep showing up for someone who doesn't reciprocate, you stop being desirable and start being convenient. Reciprocity isn't some poetic concept, it's behavioral economics. When she gives less and still gets your full attention, her brain registers one thing. Your effort has no price. She learns that she doesn't need to try. She can give you crumbs and still get a feast of validation in return. That's not attraction. That's conditioning her to undervalue you. Think about the last time you texted first, apologized first, adjusted your schedule first, all while she gave the bare minimum. That's not generosity. That's self-neglect, dressed as kindness. Every time you reach out first, you're rewarding low effort. Every time you accept the imbalance, you're teaching her how little it takes to keep you around. If love is a currency, stop trading gold for her breadcrumbs. Your attention, time, and emotional energy are assets, not donations. The more you give them away without a return, the faster they lose their worth. Here's what psychology says. People mirror behavior that benefits them. When you stop over-investing, one of two things will happen. She'll either step up to match your energy, or she'll drift away because the free supply is gone. Either way, you win. You regain clarity. Pulling back isn't about punishment, it's about recalibration. You're not withdrawing love, you're re-establishing value. When your availability stops being guaranteed, she's forced to re-evaluate what your presence actually means. That's the shift. Remember this truth. Every time you reward low effort, you're reinforcing the behavior that made you feel small in the first place. Reciprocity isn't about ego. It's about emotional economy. When both sides invest fairly, respect compounds. When one side overpays, connection dies in debt. So from now on, don't beg for balance. Create it. Number 3, you come first. Here's something most men never realize until they've already lost themselves. The moment you start orbiting around her, you begin to fade from her sight. A man who builds his world around a woman eventually becomes invisible in it. You stop being magnetic and start being manageable. And once you're manageable, you're forgettable. Women aren't drawn to men who chase them. They're drawn to men who chase purpose. There's a psychological principle behind it. Self-orbit attraction. When a man radiates direction, focus, and internal gravity, people naturally align around him. But when he gives up that center, when his emotional balance depends on her attention, the polarity collapses. You stop being a man she's intrigued by and start being one she controls. Think of it like this. She's not the sun and you're not a planet in her orbit. You are your own gravity. Every goal you chase, every boundary you set, every decision you make, those are the elements that create your field. And that field either pulls people in or repels those who don't belong there. You want her to notice you again. Don't text more. Don't prove harder. Build stronger. Invest in your health, your ambition, your mission. Not for her, but because those things remind you of who you are when you're not seeking approval. That energy, the quiet, unbothered certainty, is what creates attraction. It signals value without words. Women subconsciously read social proof. When they sense that your world is full, that you're fulfilled, respected, desired, they feel an instinctive pull. It's not manipulation. It's magnetism. The same way people gather around a fire, not because the fire asks them to, but because it burns on its own. So stop orbiting her. Reclaim your gravity. You were never meant to revolve around someone's moods or schedules. The moment you step back into your own axis, that's when she notices the space you've created and the silence that used to belong to her. Because here's the paradox of attraction. The second she realizes you're fulfilled without her, that's when she starts chasing your attention. Number 4, the novelty factor. Predictability kills desire, not instantly, but slowly, like oxygen leaving a room. When a woman already knows what you'll say, when you'll reply, and how you'll react, you stop being a person she's drawn to and start being a pattern she's memorized. And the human brain doesn't crave what it already understands. It craves surprise. Psychologists call it habituation. It means the more familiar a stimulus becomes, the weaker the emotional response. The same joke stops being funny. The same touch stops feeling electric. The same conversation stops being exciting. You're not boring. You've just become predictable. Here's the part most men don't get. She's not losing interest because you did something wrong. She's losing interest because she can see your next move before you make it. When every reply comes instantly, every invitation feels expected, and every action follows a script, there's no tension left to pull her in. You don't have to disappear or play games. What you need is pattern disruption. Create moments that make her pause. Moments where she can't quite read you. Take a few hours before replying. End a conversation on your own terms. Try something new, unexpected, and unannounced. Do it not to provoke her, but to remind yourself that your time and energy have rhythm, not permanence. A man who is easy to read is easy to forget, but a man who carries an element of mystery, not secrecy, but depth, activates a different part of her brain. Dopamine spikes when the outcome is uncertain. She starts checking your profile, rereading messages, replaying your tone in her head. You've stopped being a script and become a story again. Mystery isn't manipulation. It's magnetic tension. It's the subtle art of keeping her curious, keeping her invested. The more she wonders, the more she feels. And that curiosity fuels attraction far stronger than validation ever could. So never let her feel like she solved you. Be the man she's still trying to figure out, not the one she's already defined. Predictability makes her comfortable. Unpredictability makes her intrigued. And between comfort and curiosity, desire will always choose curiosity. Number 5. Be the prize. The more accessible something is, the less it's valued. That's not cynicism. That's psychology. Scarcity bias, a proven behavioral truth, states that people assign higher worth to what feels limited. So when your time, attention, and emotional energy are always available, they stop being meaningful. You become a constant, and constants are invisible. When a woman knows she can reach you anytime, she stops reaching with intention. When she knows you'll answer immediately, she stops crafting her words carefully. When she knows you'll always forgive, she stops fearing the loss. That's not confidence on her part. It's conditioning on yours. Being the prize doesn't mean acting superior. It means understanding that your value is determined by how selectively you share yourself. You don't need to announce it. You simply adjust your behavior. You reply when you actually have the time. You share less, not because you're hiding, but because you've learned the difference between intimacy and exposure. A treasure loses its value when it's left in the open. What's rare feels sacred. What's constant feels common. When you become emotionally scarce, when you stop broadcasting your availability, she begins to feel your absence. And the human brain reacts to absence with curiosity, even anxiety. That's loss aversion in motion. We feel the pain of losing something twice as strong as the pleasure of gaining it. So when she senses that your attention is no longer guaranteed, her instincts awaken. She replays your last conversation. She starts to wonder if someone else has your focus now. It's not about jealousy. It's about recalibration. She's realizing your presence had a weight, and she took it for granted. The less she knows about what's next, the more she'll want to find out. That's not playing games. That's allowing space for tension to breathe. You're not punishing her with silence. You're reminding her that your energy is earned, not entitled. When your time and attention become rare, her interest becomes real. Because attraction isn't built on abundance, it's built on anticipation. And when you finally give her your focus again, it won't feel casual. It'll feel like a reward. Number 6, draw the line. Respect doesn't come from what you tolerate. It comes from what you refuse to. Every relationship, whether romantic or not, is a negotiation of boundaries, the invisible lines that teach others how to treat you. When those lines blur, connection turns into convenience, and the person who refuses to set standards becomes the one everyone tests. Let's be clear. Boundaries aren't ultimatums. They're not threats, demands, or emotional walls. They're quiet declarations of self-worth. When you draw the line, you're not saying, "Don't cross me." You're saying, "This is the level of access my peace requires." It's not about control. It's about clarity. Take something simple. She cancels plans for the 3rd time. Most men respond emotionally. They argue, chase, or beg. But strength isn't in the reaction. It's in the restraint. Silence, distance, and consistency communicate far more than confrontation ever will. When your energy stops being reactive, your absence starts speaking louder than your words. Psychologists call it psychological reactance. When someone senses they're losing freedom, they instinctively desire what's slipping away. So when you withdraw calmly, not out of anger, but out of self-respect, she starts to feel that shift. You're no longer predictable. You're no longer waiting. You've drawn a line, and suddenly, she has to decide if she's willing to step back across it. A man without boundaries is like a door that never closes. Easy to enter, easier to leave. Every time you let someone cross your limits without consequence, you're not being kind. You're being complicit in your own neglect. Here's the truth most men never learn. Consistency builds credibility. When your boundaries stay firm, your presence starts to mean something again. People, including her, respect what they can't manipulate. So next time she pushes, don't explain your worth. Show it. Don't argue your standards. Enforce them quietly. The power isn't in telling her what you'll no longer accept. It's in showing her that you mean it. When she knows your standards, she'll rise to meet them or step aside. Either outcome protects your peace. And that's how boundaries stop being rules and start becoming respect. 7. Show her what she could lose. Every man wants to be wanted, but few understand the difference between being wanted and being needed. The first is temporary, based on attention, novelty, or charm. The second is deeper, built on the kind of value that can't be replicated once it's gone. Irreplaceability isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about becoming the man whose absence echoes louder than his words ever did. So how do you reach that point? By becoming whole, not dependent, not performative, but anchored. Irreplaceable men share 3 traits: emotional depth, stability, and vision. They don't chase connection. They create gravity. They bring clarity to chaos, calm to intensity, and purpose to uncertainty. That's what makes a woman pause before she walks away. Because deep down, she knows she may find someone new, but she won't find this. When you offer emotional depth, you give her safety. When you embody stability, you become her peace. And when you have vision, when you're building something greater than the relationship itself, you become her inspiration. Those 3 things form the foundation of masculine energy that can't be duplicated. Every woman remembers the man who made her feel safe and slightly scared to lose him. Not because he threatened to leave, but because his presence carried weight. He didn't need to prove his worth. He lived it. His silence spoke louder than any declaration. His focus made her realize she was part of something rare. You don't win her by proving you're the best. You win her by being the one she can't forget. The one who touched her life with certainty, not need. When you operate from abundance, not scarcity, you stop competing with other men entirely. You exist in a category of your own. And here's the paradox of power. The moment she realizes losing you would mean losing her balance, that's when you've become the priority. Because true influence doesn't come from chasing attention. It comes from embodying value so solid that attention chases you. That's the man she doesn't play games with. That's the man she rethinks everything for. And that's the man you're becoming. You started this video wondering why she treats you like an option. Why you feel like the man she calls when she's bored, but forgets when she's busy. Now you know the truth. It was never just about her choices. It was about your boundaries, your energy, and what you taught her to expect. Because in every relationship, spoken or not, you're teaching people how to value you. Every unanswered message you accept, every cancelled plan you forgive without consequence, every time you overextend to prove your worth, you write the script of how you'll be treated. And the good news? You can rewrite it anytime. You don't need to chase, convince, or negotiate for attention. You only need to remember this. You teach people how to value you by the way you value yourself. When you start showing up like a man who knows his worth, you won't have to demand respect. It will arrive uninvited. Look back at where you began, the guy who waited for her texts, who accepted uncertainty as affection. That man doesn't exist anymore. You've learned to read the room, balance reciprocity, and reclaim your gravity. You've discovered that mystery isn't manipulation, it's magnetic. You've drawn lines that protect your peace and built presence that commands attention. Now, you're not the guy she calls when she's bored. You're the man she can't stop thinking about. The one whose silence says more than his words ever could. The one whose absence feels heavier than his presence ever did. And remember this, when you know your worth, silence becomes your weapon, distance becomes your language, and scarcity becomes your power. You're not being cold, you're being clear. If this message hit you hard, it's because you needed to hear it. Don't just listen to it. Live it. Walk with it. Let it reshape the way you show up in every connection you have. Subscribe to this channel because here we don't chase approval. We study psychology, master energy, and reclaim emotional power. I'll see